I'm here with my English language learner, Lizette, and she's going to tell me a little bit about her experience learning English. Lizette, what was your first language?
My first language was Spanish.
And when did you begin to learn English?
About the time I went to kindergarten, about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay. Tell me about your home environment, what it was like when you were growing up.
Growing up, I grew up with my grandparents who only spoke Spanish. My mom's parents didn't live so far away, and they spoke both Spanish and English, but mainly with my dad's parents, I had no help with homework or anything because they couldn't translate for me. Typical Spanish family, we had lots of animals: chickens, roosters, rabbits, goats, and a couple of dogs.
Okay. Before you learned English, what were some of your favorite books, TV shows, or movies?
I had a couple of books, but I never was able to read them or have them read to me because they were in English. And TV show wise, I watched Barney and all those little kid TV shows, but I really didn't have a good understanding of them.
Okay. We Did you know English before you started school?
I knew enough to get me by and make conversation, but not enough to learn and grasp information.
So you knew like cat, dog,
Yeah,
like words, but you didn't know how to like form complete sentences or complete thoughts,
I could
right?
I could form some complete sentences and some complete thoughts, but just some things were completely over my head.
Were you placed in any English as a second language classes or given any extra help when you started school?
Our teacher was our help because of the fact that almost everybody in my school spoke Spanish, and most of them it was their first language. Um, I believe if you did not speak any English at all, then they did have an ESOL program for you.
But your community was predominantly Hispanic,
Yes.
and most of the kids in your class, English wasn't their first language.
Right.
Okay. What do you think helped you the most to learn English?
What helped me the most to learn English was the way that my teacher interacted with us and used our cultural experiences as a learning tool to engage while she was teaching us how to read or do math. And also for me, my aunt was a big help for me because she didn't speak any Spanish, so she kind of just helped me as much as she could to learn how to read and help what my teacher was doing in school.
So like the only way you could communicate with her was through English.
Yes.
What were some difficulties you had learning English?
Um, the reading was a big challenge, but learning how to understand it and apply it to everyday life and just getting used to speaking a different language was a whole new task. And my grandparents spoke Spanish and English, so adapting to them.
The fact that nobody in your household spoke English, did that help you learn English or no?
Not really, because then it was going back to the fact that I didn't need it.
Right, right. And there was nobody to help you either. If you had homework or anything, they couldn't help you, right?
When my parents were around, but by the time they got home from work, I was already in bed. So if I needed help studying, like for a spelling test or something, my grandma would try to help me, but the end result wouldn't be that great.
Do you still have any trouble speaking or understanding English?
I still have trouble understanding and following some directions. Saying certain words or enunciating definitely still is part of my everyday life and trying to learn it.
How did you learn how to read?
I learned how to read in school. Like I was saying before, my teachers helped, and pretty much my teachers between first grade and third grade, but I'd hide out in first grade and try not to read because I didn't feel comfortable reading. So till about like third or fourth grade is when I actually started to, I guess, be comfortable reading and whatnot.
Okay. So then how long was it before you were completely comfortable speaking and understanding English fluently?
So I'd say speaking about third grade and maybe reading about fourth grade.
Okay. So that's probably about 3 or 4 years since you started
Yeah.
learning. Okay. What language do you think in?
I think in both, and when I was younger, only Spanish, and even when I was learning English, everything still sounded Spanish to me.
So when you speak, does it depend on what you talk about sometimes?
Yeah, it depends about what I'm talking about, who I'm talking about it with, and if I can find the right word to say in English. If not, it comes out Spanglish.
Which is like my next question that I have. Do you still find yourself code switching sometimes? Which is when your language is kind of mixed. When you think in one and
Speak in the other.
yeah. Or like Spanglish almost.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, depends who I'm talking with, what I'm talking about, and what the situation is, I guess.
Mm-hmm. You start saying a thought in Spanish, and then it turns to English, and then back to Spanish.
Yep.
And can you read in your first language?
No, I cannot. I was too young when I learned English, so I was too young to learn how to read Spanish too.
Okay. After you did learn English, what kinds of books did you like to read?
I liked the Goosebump books and Dr. Seuss because I finally understood the metaphors and the meanings to what everyone was trying to say that I didn't get.
Dr. Seuss doesn't usually write like
self-explanatory things.
Right. Sometimes his things are a little, backward, and you kind of have to have another understanding for it. Is there any type of text that you find hard to read now?
Instructions. I still have a hard time trying to apply instructions to certain things or learning how to do something.
Okay. I guess that's all the questions I have for you. I do have a reading sample that I'd like you to do. It's from the Twilight series. It's Breaking Dawn. So if you could read this, I have a page picked out for you. You can start at the top and then read to the bottom.
Okay. That woke me up a little. We'd been good for 3 miles out. How? I'm hearing you more clearly. It's a matter of familiarity and concentration. Also, your thoughts are slightly easier to pick up when you're in your human form, so I caught most of what passed out there. Oh, it bugged me a little, but for no reason, so I shrugged it off. Good, I hate repeating myself. I tell you to get some sleep, Bella. But my guess is that you're going to pass out on the floor in about 6 seconds, so there's probably no point. It was amazing how much better she sounded, how much stronger she looked. I smelled fresh blood and saw that the cup was in her hands again. How much blood would it take to keep her going? At some point, would they start trotting in the neighbors? I headed for the door, counting off the seconds for her as I walked. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Where's the floor? Rosalie muttered. You know how you drown a blonde, Rosalie? I asked without stopping or turning to look at her. Glue a mirror to the bottom of the pool. I heard Edward chuckle as I pulled the door shut. His mood seemed to improve in exact correlation to Bella's health. I've already heard that when Rosalie called after me. I trudged down the steps. My only goal was to drag myself far enough into the trees that the air would be pure again. I planned to ditch the clothes a convenient distance from the house for future use, rather than tying them to my leg, so I wouldn't be smelling them either.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the interview.
You're welcome.